So as is our, hello Shelley, welcome, and Paul and Carrie, welcome. As is our custom, we will begin with a short meditation to create a sacred space. So everyone please close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. As you go at your own pace of inhaling and exhaling. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car move past on the highway. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Hey, welcome, Joanne. We can't really see you. We only see the top of your head and the ceiling. You might want to tilt your computer. There you go. Hello. And welcome, Elaine. I see you signing on. Thank you for joining us today. All right, well, for today, we are moving into our second week of gratitude. And we'll begin with what I think is a beautiful poem by Marcia Falk.
Oh.
So would anyone like to volunteer to read this poem?
I will, because I know Marcia Falk from Los Angeles.
Oh, wonderful.
Sleep descending on my lids, on my limbs, I call to mind the gifts of the day, the gift of this day, and give thanks.
Thank you. So we can use this as our sort of as an opening for us to talk about what does this sort of bring up for you and bring forth, in terms of gratitude. Yeah, Carrie.
I'm taking a painting class and I'm totally.
Sorry, having a little trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm taking a painting class. I'm having trouble with it. I'm out of my comfort zone. And today I was having a lot of trouble. And I kept saying to myself, it's okay. Be grateful that you can take this class. Be grateful that you're here with all these people and they're supporting you and everything will be okay.
Losing your sound.
We started to lose your sound a little bit again.
This is your computer. Fix it.
My computer.
Okay, now we can hear you again. I think when you're a little closer, you were saying having something about having people with you, supporting you.
Yeah, I mean, even though it was a very difficult day, I was looking at all the positives of,
Mhm.
of what was happening and focusing on those instead of the discomfort I was feeling with the painting. That's how that poem, I thought, reflected what I tried to do today.
Ray, could
Beautiful.
you post that again,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
Let me put it in the chat. There we go. Anyone else have a reflection? Oh, Shelley, I see you have your assistant with you today. Anyone else have any thoughts? Yeah, Joanne and then Carol.
I usually start my day with a few thank yous,
Mhm.
and I say certain prayers at night, but I don't review my day, which probably would be a good thing to do because there are things, like I had a wonderful music lesson today.
Hmm.
I have a wonderful music teacher, so we do Zoom,
Uh-huh.
and yeah.
Great. Thank you. Carol.
Um, I do a gratitude journal at night before I go to bed. Sometimes I miss it, but lately I've been a little bit hit and miss. But just before I go to bed, I list 15 things throughout the day that
Mm,
were and sometimes it's a very small thing, like, ooh, the woodpecker visited my backyard today,
mm,
my bird feeder, or I'm grateful that my old appliances in this old house are still working, or my car runs, or whatever it is. I mean, small things, but small things are really important.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Absolutely. It's as we talked about a little bit last week, it's so easy to kind of lose sight of the small things and take things for granted. And yes, Wendy.
I really like that poem. And I really like the picture it brings of after a really long, hard day of things going wrong and right, but wrong a lot. And then, but when sleep comes, then you can finally have your mind clear enough so that then the gratitude can come rushing in. I like that. And then you can go to sleep. Sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep and I'm not thinking of going to sleep, I'm thinking about all the things during the day, then sleep doesn't come. But that's a really good way of transitioning into sleep.
Mm.
Would give you a really good night's sleep, I think. I'm gonna try that tonight.
I try that too. I'm not very good. I'm not a particularly good sleeper, and I tend to have other sorts of things running around in my head. But I wonder if I did sort of try framing gratitude in that way. It might, yeah, I'd be curious to see what happens. So thank you, Bonnie.
I also frame my day. I start with Hebrew prayers and English prayers and the Serenity Prayer. And I end it with my journal. I'm happy that I put 3 things down every day. And because I've been lucky to get out into the county parks and was out this morning at the Pachetti Trail, or Pachetti, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but it is so beautiful
Mm,
and empty. And it was crystal clear out this morning. We ran into very few people. It was just delightful. But I do, and then I close it with a number of English and Hebrew prayers and the Serenity Prayer. And so that, looking back on my day, really helps me frame what I'm looking for to end the day and to go into the night and then the next morning. It works for me.
Thank you, Bonnie. Framing is, psychologists love framing. That's one of the reasons why we part of Mussar practice is saying a mantra at the beginning of the day to kind of frame your day with respect to whatever soul trait you're working on. So, but it doesn't mean that it can't be, honor and gratitude, or the morning prayer and gratitude, or and humility, or whatever it is that we're doing. So yeah, I like that. Yes, Joanne. Joanne, I think you're on mute.
Gratitude's built into Judaism. You open your eyes and say, thank God I'm alive today. Thank you. And, the things are working, the plumbing is working, and, I'm very grateful. I did do a whole gratitude exercise, a very long one, and realized that, I'm very sense-oriented and color-oriented, and everything that I see, or smell, or taste, or touch is a source of gratitude if it's pleasant. If it's not so pleasant, at least it's I'm grateful that it's a warning not to go there. And there was something, I have to look at it, but negative thing, like saying getting criticism is, I'm grateful when I listen to it if there's something that I can improve about myself. So I'm grateful for that. If it's not, if it's constructive, let's put it that way.
Thank you, Joanne. So we have Linda and then Karen.
I appreciate the things people are saying. I'm grateful to be reminded, partly because I seem to be one of those people who can let the negativity and challenges of the world overshadow all those beautiful things that happen every day. I'm not proud of that, and I could stand working on it harder. But there it is.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for listening with an open heart. Thank you for sharing that. And Karen.
So for me, time flies by when the days one day doesn't seem to be different from another.
Mhm.
And so if I try to find different things each day to be grateful for, then I recognize what's uniquely special about a day, and I have a way to remember that day is different from the next one. And so that's one of the things that I love about finding a couple of things to be grateful for each day, is that I get to see each day as uniquely special and remember it. And one day doesn't just blur into another. And then I wake up, in the future and say, where did my life go? What happened each day? It brings a more acute awareness to the days. And so that's how it helps me.
Each day is uniquely special. That is great. Anyone else? Okay, let's dive in. I couldn't tell, Shelley, if you were talking or yes. Okay, so you just need to unmute.
Sorry, the puppy is trying to attack me. Gotta love it. We gotta, grateful for puppies, right? We all should have puppies, especially when they're growing teeth. I was grateful for today because I came out to the boyfriend's mother's place, and on the drive, I think we must have got at least 20 eagles flying in the sky. And yeah, it was such a blissful thing. And one of the things that I've been doing since the 1st of January is I have a big jar, and every day I write down an experience, a good experience. And and we all have those experiences in the day where we go, wow, I just met somebody new, I had an interesting conversation. And I'm, that kind of person. I talk to everybody. And so at the end of the year, the idea is that you take the jar back out and you start pulling out your memories, because, we tend to forget what happened. We remember it maybe last week or something like that, but 8 months from now, I might forget that I had that conversation, with a man on the street about the restaurant that he used to own, that I was looking at. Right. So I'm grateful for that. Just grateful for every day, just for living, to have food. I know I mentioned with you, Greg, that one of the things that I've been doing since last Thanksgiving has been going downtown to the east side to where all the homeless people are. And just, you leave that situation after you've, given out food and clothes. And we've had really cold weather here. It was like -10. And you go home and you kind of go, I'm about to jump in a shower, I'm about to have food. And it takes you back and you become a little humble because you realize those people are still out there. So, thank you, universe. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. Anyone else? Okay. Let's go in a little bit deeper. Let's see, I'm gonna move this over here. We'll go back to. So we haven't talked about our assumptions in a while. And the assumption that is matched with gratitude this week is that we all share the same soul traits, but have a unique measure of each. So when it comes to something like gratitude, or, if we take the literal translation of the Hebrew, which is recognizing the good, we all have this capacity, but some of us tend to do this more naturally and others not. But having the capacity means it's something that, that we can grow towards balance. And as we, I think in a couple minutes, we'll look at sort of the spectrum because, and maybe we'll just do that now. We'll pair these two together because having too much gratitude can get us in trouble with complacency and not taking action, and having too little gratitude can lead to a more down or depressive lifestyle, not sort of recognizing the gifts. So I'm curious, how accessible does that feel to you, this idea that we all sort of share these traits and that we have the ability to make changes within ourselves, to kind of grow towards balance? Yeah, Paul.
I'm going to project. I just updated my operating system. Maybe it's changed some things. So
okay. So far, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. One thing that I had become, that I've been aware of for the last few months is when I find that people are being less than generous, in an interaction. This could be somebody that I'm close with or somebody that I'm just having a conversation with at work or something like that. And, my general thought has been, well, I don't know what their day's been like. I don't know what their home life is like. I don't know, the family members that are suffering from COVID or whatever it might be. So I do my best to give them, space within myself so that I don't take what they're saying personally. What this spectrum just did for me when you showed it gives me a bit more of a framework, so to speak, right? It frames it in that, it may be difficult for this person to be expressing gratitude. They're more, on the depressive side, more seeing things not in a way where they feel like they're getting blessings from their world. And so they may be going through some difficult times, and framing it that way, it's easier right now thinking about it, it's easier to feel more compassion with that person. Not that I know what's going on unless they tell me, but still, it gives me a, it feels like if I keep this in mind, it will help me be more sensitive instead of simply saying, well, I don't know what their day is like, so I'm just going to ignore them, but really to sort of embrace them in some way. Well,
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, that's very powerful, being able to find ways to embrace people when they're not behaving in a way that that we would like them to, or that sort of matches our own values. So I appreciate you sharing that. Other thoughts about the spectrum, or this idea about all of us sharing our soul traits? Yeah, Irene and then Carol. So Irene, you need to unmute. There you go.
I'm still getting used to that after all these years. I find the idea of the spectrum very empowering, and the idea of all the midot that can fall into these, what's the plural of spectrum? Spectra. I don't know. And similar to Paul, I think the idea of the spectrum of both the ability to have these traits so that you can fall one place or another, and the ability to be able to judge a particular situation is just an extremely powerful concept. I've been impressed with it and using it and lauding it for as long as I've had since your first class, which I don't know how long ago that was. So I think it's very helpful. I think that it helps me to monitor my own actions. And I liked very much what Paul said about accepting other people's actions.
Yeah, and I think there's a connection too, because the better able, I think the more we're able to accept who we are, the easier it becomes to accept other people for who they are. Karen.
Carol was.
Oh, sorry, Carol, and then Karen, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, everyone has the same traits. That means we're connected in a very real way, but it's in a different balance, which means we're different in a very real way. But you can connect to the same traits. And when somebody behaves in a way that's maybe not the way I think, is polite, decorous, whatever, my response is, if I stop to think about it at all, is everybody has a story. And that person's story is not my story. It's not my story. I don't know what that person's story is. That person I was trying to get through the door and that person just let it go and slammed in my face. Yeah, I don't know what that person has on his mind. Maybe his child died yesterday. I don't know. Or maybe he's just a cranky old curmudgeon. I don't know that either. Doesn't matter. The fact is, I have to accept I don't know that person's story. And that person's story to that person is every bit as valid as mine is to me. But because we share these traits, we all do, we are also connected. And that makes, I think that's partly what forms community, is accepting that, yeah, under all of this, it's a different balance, it's a different color here and it's a different pile of shirts over there or whatever it is. But we all have the colors and we all have the pile of whatever, and that makes us connected, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, and I also hear not only does it make us connected, but I hear a little, as you tell the story, a little bit of curiosity about what is that other person's story. And that is also a connecting way of connecting. Curiosity is much healthier than anger, frustration, whatever. Before we go to Karen, I saw that Linda had asked in the chat what midot means. Midot is, it's a midah is the same thing as a soul trait. It's the Hebrew for that. So midot is plural. So it's like soul traits. And it literally means measure. So again, it's talking about, we have a certain measure for this trait. Okay, Karen. And then Wendy.
The fact that we all have the same soul traits makes it easy for me to categorize behaviors, actions, and interactions with other people. And when I first learned about this, I thought, oh, I really need to aim to be in the middle of every soul trait. And as I learned more, I found out that I don't. For instance, with the soul trait of patience, sometimes I need to be a little more impatient in order to have equanimity. I need to act quickly to get something done. And so when I see a behavior or an action that I don't quite understand, it's easy for me to say, to categorize it into a soul trait that I'm familiar with and say, okay, so this person is not right in the middle there. Where's the person on the spectrum for that soul trait? And then there could be any number of reasons why. And that might actually be balancing out, being a little, if you're right of center on one soul trait, left of center on another. So that's how I use the spectrum.
Thank you, Karen. And you brought in one really important point that I want to highlight, which is also the situation. And there's an interaction between our balance in particular situations. And sometimes if we're really out of balance, our behaviors can hug the extremes, and we can flip from one to the other, or other people can. And so, we all can be put in a situation where we're out of our comfort zone, or we're wrong-footed for a certain, or be caught off guard. And there are other types of situations where, we're really in our comfort zone. We have a lot of experience and just a lot of ability to deal with that. And part of these spiritual practices is it opens more freedom for us. By accessing that, makes it easier to kind of keep our equanimity and to deal with these sorts of situations where we're thrown off or where somebody else is thrown off, and we have to manage that. So thank you, Karen. Okay, Wendy.
Short. I know, don't hate me for this, guys, but gratitude is contagious. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, it's just as I'm sitting here, because I'm under a lot of stress right now, I'm usually way up there in the spectrum of gratitude, and it's just right here. But the minute one of you says, I'm grateful for, or starts talking about your gratitude, then that has brought it into me. So it's like we're a community, and the more you do, the more I can do. And it was hard because Greg gave us that assignment for 15 minutes to have the good things, bad things, inanimate objects, to sit there and write. Well, I've done that before, and I had 5 pages. I sat there and just stared at that paper. And now I have to do this now in the midst of all of this. And I had some good things happen from that, but I still haven't written anything down on that. But just being here with you guys, and then just everybody that has said something about the way they're grateful, this has brought the gratitude into me. So it's wonderful. We share it. Share it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I've sort of felt that a little bit too. It's like it is a little bit contagious, and I'm sort of feeling like kind of revved up to try to write some things down tonight. And and it's also okay if it's just not there for us right now. We sometimes I think it was in this movie, Little Big Man, where it was a Native American commander. It's like sometimes the wind don't blow and sometimes the grass don't grow. And, we can go Ecclesiastes to everything there's a season. But if it's just not our day, if it's just not coming, that's okay. It'll be there another day. I don't know whether it is Paul or Carrie who has the hand raised.
So this is I was making some notes in my journal here about the thoughts that have been coming up for me in this conversation. And I realized that by having this practice, which is only very recent for me, so I can't say it's really a practice yet. I'm just still, I made a note, for instance, set an alarm for myself every night, like around 8:30 or 9, because I always have the intention of going to bed, and I just give myself 3 items. I don't try and overdo it. If I can do 3 items at night, that'd be great. But I always forget, right? So I was thinking about this, and then when we were talking about the spectrum, I'm sure others have thought of this as well, but for me, by having, when I do become conscious of what I can be grateful for, what I am grateful for, that helps me balance on that spectrum. It's not like I give myself more gratitude that I start filling it up on one side or the other. It's not like it really helps me. If I'm complacent, it brings me back to the center. If I'm feeling really lost and like the world doesn't have anything for me, it again brings me back to the center. So it's a way of centering me. Anyway, I know that there are other scales that I've heard other people use in other frameworks where, I'm feeling like I'm an 8 today, or I'm a 9, but I'm only a 5, so it's like you're always trying to fill up, and this one is more centering. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the ways it's really different. It is centering. It's not, I need to be as grateful as possible. It's like, well, no, that's not, it's not about pouring it on. I need to be as patient as possible. Well, it's not a good idea. So, we want to be in balance. We want to be in harmony for these traits. Karen.
So Wendy spoke about this being contagious, and that reminded me of laws of attraction. And that leads me to my flight home from Florida a couple of nights ago. As I was exiting the plane, a lot of people there were saying their thank yous. And I had just finished reading and really delving in for 2 hours to my gratitude studies. And so I said, in addition to my thank you, and this was to the pilot and several of the crew members, I'm just really filled with appreciation for how this airline has worked through the pandemic to keep its employees and its customers safe, healthy, and comfortable. And I want you to know that every single one of them, there were 4 of them standing there, took a minute or so to say something in response that was really kind. I wasn't really holding up a line behind me because there was a delay, a couple of people not right behind me, but it was just so nice. If I hadn't said that, I guess I wouldn't have heard the responses. And I'm sure that everybody who said thank you meant it, but it just seemed an opportunity right in front of me that I couldn't miss to not have this burst out and say I'm really filled with appreciation. And while I was doing that, I also saw an email about a possible shortage of meat and eggs. And so I thought to myself, the next day when I'm home, I'm going to the backyard to my hens and saying, thank you for so faithfully continuing to lay eggs with less daylight during the winter, because if we have a shortage of eggs, at least I'm not affected. And anyway, so I just thought I would share that.
Well, thank you, Karen. Those are wonderful. Those are wonderful practices. And I'm reminded of Rabbi Ira Stone's central teaching around Mussar, which is, our job is to help bear the burden of the others. And so saying thank you to your hens and really taking the time to, express gratitude in such an encompassing way and a meaningful way to those employees was very impactful. And
I think also the fact that they're not human, that we're able to be grateful for things that are not human. And the one other connection I made, and I'll leave it at that, is that I was reminded of the word Dainu to go with gratitude.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love that, saying thank you to the hens, because I do think animals, yes, and Carol's thanking her horse after rides, and absolutely. And maybe I have to start thanking my cats. I speak very nicely to them, but I don't always thank them for sitting on my lap. So that's a good idea. Joanne, is that your hand I see?
Yeah. So I say thank you to the flowers that have faded over the course of the week before I throw them in the compost. Because
That's
I am
great. It
very,
reminds me of the Marie Kondo practice, where when you're straightening,
right,
you're
when you
getting rid
get
of
something
something, you
away.
thank things before you get rid of them.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
those
not good.
flowers, I suspect, just from the way you say it, bring you lots of joy into your life. So of course we should thank them. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And they were living once, but probably by the time I get rid of them, they don't have anything left. Or very little. But yes, like I said, I love color and flowers.
Yeah,
So I'm very grateful for that.
fantastic. All right, so let me pick one other teaching to share. And we talked about framing. A number of people brought up framing. And, this is one of the teachings from Ben Zoma, who's one of my favorite sages in the Talmud. And I have a volunteer to read this. Yeah, Carol.
A good guest says, "See how much this host has troubled himself for my sake. He put so much meat in front of me, so much wine, so much bread. All this effort was just for me." A bad guest says, "What trouble did this host take from me? I ate just one roll, just one piece of meat. I drank just one cup of wine. All this effort was for his own household."
Great, thank you, Carol. Okay, so what is Ben Zoma talking about here? Were these two people going to this different dinner parties? Well, thank you, Kitty, for jumping up here, by the way. I don't know if you can see him, but you probably see his tail.
They could be at the same place.
Yeah. Connie, I see your hand, and then Karen.
My first reaction, and I've read this before, was that these are two separate people. But my next one, when I read it this time, was, you know what? It could be the same person at different times.
Mhm.
Oh,
At so many, I can only speak for myself, that I will be right spot on in acknowledging and thanking and being grateful for something. And other times the same piece just goes over my head. I miss it. I have stickers around my house, Post-its, that make me stop, and some are very simple: turn the heat off, turn the lights off before you walk out of the house. But others, just to remember to take a breath. So I think there are two ways of looking at Ben Zoma's comment.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I can very much relate to that. There are definitely times when I'm the bad guest. There are other times when I'm the good guest, and and I'm not appreciating what's in front of me. Paul. Or Carrie, who's
My first reaction was one is a narcissist and the other is not a narcissist. But after listening to Bonnie's, I'm sorry, comment, I thought, well, not fair. So I wanted to take it back.
Well, we all, we all have those tendencies. I mean, the Yetzer Hara is about becoming self-centered, and the Yetzer Tov is about connecting to other people. So sometimes
Whoops.
you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. So yeah, Irene.
So we talk about midot being on a spectrum, and sometimes it's okay to be at one end or the other. Is it ever appropriate to be the bad guest? Or to veer more towards that side?
Ever covers a lot of space.
Well, so what would make it appropriate to veer towards that side?
I'm reminded of something Maimonides taught, which is Maimonides was one of the early proponents of, within Judaism, of finding the middle way. I mean, he was a big student of Aristotle's teachings. Aristotle talked about the middle way. And Maimonides said, sometimes we have to go to an extreme for a short period of time if we're really out of balance in the other direction. So, maybe, maybe there could be some circumstance like that where, or maybe someone really wasn't being very generous and they invited people over for a dinner party and then didn't serve enough, didn't serve any food, or, I don't know, but I think it's yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on that. Yeah, Linda.
Well, I'm thinking that we don't necessarily have to say where we are on the spectrum when we know we're being the bad guests. That would make us a bad guest if we complained about it.
Mm.
And then I wanted to tell you all that we have some step nieces who live on the East Coast who are very religious, and they pass the mezuzah and they kiss it, which is totally foreign to me.
Mm.
So I had to reframe it that I might not be able to do that, but I could stop and say thank you to myself.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of addressing the tradition in a way that's meaningful to you.
Mhm.
Yes, let's see. Shelley, did you unmute? Were you going to want to say something?
Yeah, well, I think it's all to do about perspective, right? And back to everybody is having their own experience and everybody is having their own thing that they're going through. And, one of the things that I always try to, whenever I'm with people and I'm seeing that somebody's getting upset, instead of it triggering me, or if it even does trigger me, I ask myself, why am I being triggered? Where is this coming from inside of me? Because we all have our perspectives, we all have our experiences. And, I'm very grateful to listen and to be aware of the other person's perspective, and also putting myself into their shoes too. Right. Like you said, you might go to a dinner party and the person only had so much food, and, you've kind of got a choice of kind of going, oh, this person didn't work really hard, or thinking about it, well, I'm grateful that they still invited me because maybe they don't have enough money. Right. So it's all about how you look at it. And so, I always try and find the other person's perspective. It's no different than thinking about how our parents raised us, and we tended to think, oh, well, my parents did this, my parents did that to me. But then do we go back to them and think, well, what happened to them? What did they experience as childhood? And I was just the other day listening to a psychologist about how they now know that from age 0 to 7, our brain waves are in theta. And that's when we're downloading all these experiences, all these belief systems. And so if you're around people who are racist, you're going to pull on those belief systems. And it's from 7 to 12 where we start to implement them. And then that's where we have our reactions. And we don't even realize sometimes why we have a reaction. Well, they're now recognizing it happens from that 0 to 7, right? You know, like we walk with no thought, and that's our subconscious telling us things. But our subconscious is also, you know, giving this moment of a reaction, right? So if I have a reaction, I tend to ask myself, well, wait a minute, where is this coming from? You know, and go into my own experience. And, you know, like we were talking about too, you know, we all are going through the same soul traits and learning and learning how to be vulnerable and speaking up. And I think, you know, and being compassionate to ourselves and being compassionate to others. So it's you know, gratitude is a big one to work on. So thank you.
Thank you. I saw a couple other hands. I guess we have a choice. Do we want to roll with this conversation, or do we want to prime for some breakouts? And I'm happy to go either way.
Let's do breakouts. That's my thought.
Yeah, okay.
I prefer breakouts.
Okay. So one of the things that's within the umbrella of talking about gratitude is how we deal with negative situations. And there's a character in the Talmud, Nahum Ish Gamzu, where he has all kinds of calamities that befall him. And, you know, each time there's a calamity, he says, you know, Gamzu Latova, and this also is for the good. And apparently Jerry Lewis, there's a story of her that he was, you know, for many years hosted the muscular dystrophy telethon, and he actually got kicked off on the air. And apparently he said Gamzu Latova. And, you know, I also share this observation that, you know, something like a flood, it can take life, it can give life because it replenishes the soil. So, you know, in our breakout groups, and part of the way that this gets processed as well, in the moment, it might seem like this is a real setback, but, you know, something good that comes out of it. So with your partner, you know, I'd like you to kind of share, if you're comfortable, and, you know, at the right level, but maybe something that's, you know, a time where you did something that started out being kind of negative, and then, you know, it turned out like something really positive came out of it. So, and the point, and sorry, I opened the rooms, but I'll just say, you know, it's not, for me, it's not about being grateful during those dark times. It's good to find things, but it's also remembering that, you know, it's temporary, that things can get better in the future. Okay, so we'll, you can join your rooms now. And for those of you who are streaming, thank you so much for being here today. This is where we're going to stop the stream. And thank you so much for joining us. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Well, we have a few minutes left to us. Would anyone care to share an insight that they had from the discussion? Yes, Joanne.
The last, just as we were being cut off, but talking, we mentioned how doing a kindness for someone can increase your own gratitude. Also makes you feel good. So,
yeah,
you know.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephanie, we hadn't heard from you today. Is there anything you have, any thoughts about this whole topic? You're not obligated to share. You're still on mute.
I've been in one of those dark places, and it's always heartwarming when you can talk with somebody else who's kind of in the same place. And so I really appreciated talking to Carol, and I would have liked to hear more of her story. This was way too short of a breakout room. So
yeah, we got a little squeeze today. Well, feel free to exchange phone numbers or email addresses in the chat, and you guys can just pick right up as soon as the call ends if you wish. So yes, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we're all here to support one another on our journeys. Sorry, I can't remember. Did I see your hand before?
Oh, yes. So Shelley put forth I don't know if it's a concept or an idea that I'm just really taken with, which was, you don't say, I have to do something. You say, I get to do something.
Mm.
And it's a whole different slant on where you might have a hard chore, one that you don't want to do, and you get to do it.
Mm. Love that. Thank you. Thank you, Irene, for uplifting Shelley's idea to all of us. Yes, Karen.
My husband said to me when my youngest was going off to college, I know it's going to be hard for you. Choose a vacation, something you really want to do, and we'll do that together, because we were headed towards empty nest.
Mm.
And so I chose a trip that I pretty much knew he really wasn't going to want to do. And I was really grateful that he said that he would try it.
Mm.
And we did the vacation and we came home. And I was in the room when my son came in and he said, so Dad, how was it? It really wasn't great, was it? And my husband said, no, it was much better than I expected. And your mother and I had a really nice time. And he said, oh, come on, you're just saying that because Mom's in the room. And my husband said, no, actually, I got out of my comfort zone. It was a really wonderful trip. And so I was grateful that he agreed to do this, because he did say to me, you choose. And it just turned out to be better than a lot of people thought. A few other people said, really, you want to get closer because the kids are going away and you think this is going to do it and not the reverse? You have to have some confidence in yourself. Anyway, there was a really happy ending. So I thought I would share that. Maybe that's a nice way to end the evening.
Well, thank you, Karen. And that is a certainly happy ending. Nancy, I saw your hand. We haven't heard from you yet today either.
yeah,
So,
I was percolating throughout the whole session. I did share what has been on my mind all for the last hour with Paul and Carrie. But just one thing that I just want to be thankful and grateful for is that being in a state of gratitude can be a blessing in disguise. And that's something that you think is a horrible situation at the beginning, and I won't go into specifics, but comes out as what kind of like a best thing that could happen. You see all the wonderful things around you, and that you can embrace that and start a new chapter in your life. And I just think that's a wonderful picture to have.
thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
Well, we're at 5:01. So we are going to finish up today with a meditation as we always do, but we're going to do that kind of as a visualization around the Marcia Falk poem where we began today. So please, once again, close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose, a slow exhale through the mouth, and just visualize yourself settling into your bed. Sleep descending on my lids, on my limbs. I call to mind the gifts of the day. The gift of this day. And give thanks. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, thank you all for your gift of this hour, spending it in community together. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Greg.